Watch him. A man in a dark hoodie, scarf pulled up over his face, pacing in front of a Mexican restaurant in West London. Back and forth, back and forth. The CCTV camera above the door catches him every few seconds. He doesn't go inside. It's a Sunday evening in May. The street is busy. People walk past him without a second glance. To them, he's nothing. A guy waiting for a friend. A guy killing time before the last train home. He isn't. He's looking for someone. And in less than 30 hours, a 21-year-old girl will be lying in an alley 2 streets away with 40 stab wounds in her body. And the wound to her throat will be so deep that the first officer on scene will turn away and have to compose himself before he can call it in. This is the story of Anna Jedrkowiak. She was born in Poland, and from the time she was a little girl, she knew she wasn't going to stay there. She wanted more. She wanted the world. She told her mother she was going to learn Japanese one day and move to Tokyo, not as a fantasy, as a plan. In 2020, at the age of 19, she moved by herself to the United Kingdom, alone. New country, new language, new life. She enrolled at the University of West London in a sound engineering program, one of the most technically demanding fields in the audio world, and she was doing it in her second language. She didn't complain, she just worked. To pay her way, she got a job at Las Iguanas, a Mexican restaurant in Ealing, West London. She worked behind the bar, and her co-workers will tell you she was the kind of bartender people came in to see. She remembered orders. She laughed at bad jokes. She made the night better. And in the spring of 2022, something else was happening at Las Iguanas. There was a guy at work named Jack. He worked the floor. They started spending time together after shifts, walking out at closing, laughing about customers. It was new. It was light. It was the beginning of something. Anna was 21 years old. She had a degree she was almost finished with. She had a job she loved. She had a boy she was starting to like. She had a plan to move to Japan. She had a future. She also had an ex-boyfriend, 150 miles away in Newport, Wales, and he wasn't letting go. His name was Dennis Akpomedaye. He was 29. He was born in Nigeria. He was living in Wales, and his life, at this point, was falling apart. He had no job. He had no money. The flat he was living in was later described in court as squalor, actually maggot-infested. Prosecutors would call it the picture of a man slowly falling down a dark hole, depressed, isolated, stuck, none of which is an excuse for what comes next. Plenty of people lose their jobs. Plenty of people live in bad flats. Plenty of people get dumped. None of them do what he did. He and Anna had met online in January 2021. They dated for about a year. From the outside, nothing dramatic. 2 people in their 20s, met on the internet, tried to make it work. But Anna saw something the people around her couldn't see yet. She saw the way he reacted when she made her own decisions. She saw the way he wanted to know where she was. And so, somewhere around early 2022, she made the call. She ended it. She told friends she wanted a clean break, not a pause, not a maybe later, a clean break. She had a new city, a new job, a new guy. She was building a life, and he wasn't in it. He couldn't accept it. First came the phone calls, then came the threats. But not the kind you might expect. He didn't threaten her yet. He threatened himself. He told her he'd kill himself if she didn't come back. It's one of the oldest manipulation tactics in the book, and it works because it weaponizes the victim's kindness against her. If you leave, my blood is on your hands. Anna didn't come back, so the messages got darker. And then he said it. We will be together no matter what. I will find you. That is not a man trying to win a girl back. That is a man telling her there is no version of the future where she gets to walk away. He didn't say, I miss you. He didn't say, please. He said, I will find you. Anna was scared. She told people she was scared. She was right to be scared. Because while she was working her shifts at Las Iguanas, while she was studying for finals, while she was getting to know Jack, Dennis was already taking the trips. He had already started showing up. At her flat, at her work, quietly, just to see, just to watch. He had already decided how this ended. She just didn't know it yet. Sunday, May 15th, 2022. Dennis walks into Newport bus station, buys a ticket, and gets on a long-distance coach to London. It's a 4-hour ride. He has time to think, time to change his mind, time to turn around at any stop. he doesn't. At 6:34 p.m., he steps off at Victoria Coach Station in central London. He doesn't check into a hotel. He doesn't call anyone. He goes straight down into the underground. About an hour later, he comes up the stairs at Ealing Broadway Station. He turns onto the street, and he walks directly to Las Iguanas. Anna isn't working that night. The hood, the scarf over his face. He doesn't know she's not there. He's checking. And when he realizes she's not behind the bar, he leaves. Then he gets back on the buses. He rides them around Ealing for hours, just riding, staying close. He spends the night somewhere. The investigation never confirmed where, and frankly, it doesn't matter. What matters is Monday morning. Monday, May 16th. He's still in Ealing. Anna walks into Las Iguanas just before 5 p.m. for her shift. At 6 p.m., Dennis is back at Ealing Broadway Station. He's in position. And at 7:55 p.m., 5 minutes before 8, he walks into a small shop on New Broadway. He picks something off the shelf. He pays in cash, a kitchen knife, £4, 99 pence. He takes the receipt. He puts it in the pocket of a black rucksack he's carrying. Then he walks back outside, into the spring evening, and he resumes pacing in front of the restaurant where she's working. This time he has the knife on him. This time he's not going home. 11:40 p.m. Anna's shift ends. She grabs her things. Jack is finishing up too. They walk out of Las Iguanas together. The CCTV from the restaurant shows two young people in a good mood heading home on a quiet weekday night. They turn onto the route Anna always takes. It cuts through a narrow walkway called Robert's Alley, off Church Gardens, in South Ealing. It's a shortcut. She's walked it 100 times. Behind them, a figure in a balaclava falls in step. He doesn't run. He doesn't rush. At approximately 12:10 a.m. on what is now technically Tuesday, May 17th, 2022, he attacks. I'm not going to dramatize this. I'm going to tell you what the forensic pathologist found, because the facts are heavier than any adjective. Anna sustained approximately 40 stab wounds across her body, defensive wounds on her hands and arms where she tried to block the blade, wounds to her torso, and then the final wound, a cut to her throat, so deep, so deliberate that the medical examiner would later describe her as nearly decapitated. This was not a fight. This was not a struggle that got out of hand. This was a man who traveled 150 miles, waited 2 days, bought a knife 5 hours earlier, and used every second of that time to make sure he could finish it. Jack was there. He saw it. There was nothing he could do. It happened in seconds, in the dark, against a man with a blade and a plan. When it was over, Dennis ran. He left Anna in the alley. He left Jack screaming, and he left behind, without realizing it, every single piece of evidence the police would need to find him before the sun came up the next day. The first call goes out just after midnight. Patrol units arrive, then CID, then the Metropolitan Police's Specialist Crime Command, the unit that handles London's most serious homicides. And from the very first hours, the investigation makes one decision that defines everything that follows. They don't wait. Most murder investigations move in days and weeks. Witness lists, door-to-doors, lab results that take months. But the team looks at the scene. A young woman, killed in a public alley in one of the most heavily surveilled cities in the world, and they go straight to the cameras. But cameras alone don't solve a murder. They need a name to point them at. And in Anna's case, the name comes from her own life. When detectives talk to her friends, her co-workers, her family, the same story comes back, again and again. The ex-boyfriend, the one who wouldn't let go, the one who showed up at her work, the one who showed up at her flat, the one who told her, in writing, "We will be together no matter what. I will find you." His name is Dennis Akpomedaye, 29, from Newport, Wales, 150 miles away. So now the detectives have a suspect, and they have a city full of cameras. They start pulling footage, not just from the alley, from everywhere. The restaurant, the streets around it, the tube, the bus routes, the coach stations, and piece by piece, frame by frame, a route appears. Now the investigation makes the second decision that wins this case. They ask one question. If he came in on a coach, how does he leave? The answer is obvious. The same way. Officers are dispatched to Victoria Coach Station, not to surround it, not to lock it down, to wait. with his photograph in hand, watching every gate, every platform, every queue. At 9:50 p.m. on May 17, 2022, less than 22 hours after Anna's body was found, Dennis walks into Victoria Coach Station, carrying a ticket back to Newport. He doesn't make it onto the bus. He thought he had planned everything perfectly. He brought the balaclava. He bought a cheap knife so it couldn't be traced to him personally. He wore dark clothes. He even tried in the hours after the murder to clean himself up. He failed at every single step. When officers searched him at Victoria Coach Station, they found a blood stain on his right shoe. DNA testing matched it to Anna. His fingers were sliced and cut up. When you stab someone 40 times with a kitchen knife, your hand slips on the handle. The blade comes back on your fingers. And he'd done something with that bleeding hand that on paper sounds almost insane. At 5:45 a.m. that morning, roughly 5 hours after the murder, CCTV catches him walking up to an ambulance crew parked at a petrol station near Gunnersbury Park. He shows them his hand. He tells them, with a straight face, that he was attacked by a pit bull. The paramedics tell him to go to a hospital. He does, under a fake name. Then he visits another, also under a fake name. Later in court, he'll try a different story altogether. He'll claim he's a sword performer and a trick went wrong. But here's why none of it mattered. Because while he was busy lying to paramedics, the police were following a blood trail. Literally, a blood trail. From the alley, through the streets, toward Gunnersbury Park, to a body of water called Round Pond. Divers went in. They came back out with the murder weapon, Anna's mobile phone, his mobile phone, and a framed photograph of him and Anna together. He had carried a framed photo of his ex-girlfriend to her own murder, and then thrown it in a pond. And it gets worse. Remember the black rucksack he was wearing in the CCTV from earlier in the evening? By the time he's seen on a bus after the attack, the rucksack is gone. He ditched it. He left it somewhere on a London bus, and someone turned it in to transport for London's Lost Property Office, where it sat in a bin until detectives came asking. Inside the rucksack, bloodstains matching him, and the receipt for the knife. He had stabbed a 21-year-old woman 40 times, and he had kept the receipt for the weapon in his bag. Dennis Akpomedaye was charged with murder on the evening of May 18, 2022, barely a day after the attack. He appeared by video link at the Old Bailey on May 23 for his first hearing, and then the case moved to Kingston Crown Court for trial. He had a barrister, a senior one, Karim Fouad, an experienced defender. But even Fouad would later acknowledge what everyone in the room could see. The CCTV and the forensic evidence were, in his words, compelling and conclusive. There was nothing to argue. There was only the question of whether the defendant would even show up to hear his own verdict. He didn't. Throughout the trial, Dennis Akpomedaye refused to come into the courtroom. He stayed in his cell. He would not face the jury. He would not face Anna's family. He would not face anyone. Anna's sister, Katerina, sat in the public gallery day after day. She listened to every detail. She saw the photos. She heard the timeline of the last hours of her sister's life read out by strangers in wigs. And the man who did it wouldn't even walk down the corridor to look her in the eye. On May 25, 2023, just over a year after Anna died, the jury returned its verdict. Guilty. 6 days later, on May 31, 2023, the case came back for sentencing in front of Judge Rajiv Shetty. He refused to come up for that too. Judge Shetty addressed the empty dock. He called the attack ferocious and savage. He stated for the record that there was no evidence of mental disorder, no evidence of diminished capacity. There is no mitigation here, he said. And then he passed sentence. Dennis Akpomedaye was sentenced to life imprisonment, with a minimum term of 29 years before he can even be considered for parole.